Konnichiwa everyone, it's Dan from JaDan.co.uk and today's video is all about learning Japanese. So, welcome to my video. Thanks for dropping by. If you're here, chances are you're trying to learn Japanese. So, learning Japanese is a difficult thing. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. You're going to need some advice and some tips to get you on your way. Luckily, your boy JaDan's got your back. We're going to discuss some tips today. When you're learning a new language, one of the most important things is to understand your motivation for learning. With any language, there's tons of different factors to why people want to learn. And understanding that is a very good first step on understanding how to approach the language. Some common motivations for learning Japanese: travel. You want to travel to Japan, you want to be able to get around, you want to be able to ask for stuff in a restaurant. Maybe you move into Japan and, daily life is going to mean that you need Japanese, so it's a pretty good reason to learn. Maybe you're not in Japan, maybe you've not even come into Japan, but you want to make friends in Japan. Online, it's much easier to make friends. Back in the day, you had to have a pen pal and write them a letter, but now you can just go on Skype or something and talk to each other, so maybe you want to make friends in Japan. Good motivation. I think one of the most common reasons right now is things like anime, manga and video games. In the West, Japanese culture, Japanese otaku culture is gaining much more notoriety. And people want to learn because they want to watch their favourite anime in Japanese without subtitles. They want to read actual Japanese manga books, or they want to play their favourite video games in Japanese. It's kind of difficult to learn from that media alone, but it's a good starting point. All good motivation to learn Japanese. There's many more that it'll take too long to cover them all, so let's get started on some tips. Disclaimer: I am in no way, shape or form an expert at Japanese. My Japanese is mecha hetta desu yo, means really, really bad. I'm a student of the language too. I'm still learning, so hopefully these are the tips that I wish I'd gotten, and hopefully they can point you in the right direction, so let's go. These are my 5 tips for beginning to learn Japanese. Tip number 1, learn Hiragana and Katakana. So Hiragana and Katakana are the kana writing systems in Japan. In Japan they have 3 writing systems. They have Hiragana, Katakana and Kanji. And Kanji is Chinese characters and there's like a million of them and they're very difficult. But Hiragana and Katakana are pretty basic and they'll get you a long way. Hiragana is the phonetic sounds that Japanese has. Things like a, I, u, e and o. And they all have their own little symbol. They're pretty easy to learn. You can pretty much write any Japanese word using these. Katakana is the same thing, but for words from a foreign language. Credit card, credit cardo. Or maybe things like igarisu, England. So a lot of those words you will already know, but they're sort of said in like what feels kind of like a racist Japanese accent, but you get used to it after a while. Some of you might be asking, why not Romanji? Romanji is Japanese, but in English characters. There's a couple of reasons. A, it will slow down your learning of the language because 99% of what you see out there is written in Hiragana, Katakana or Kanji. So learning it in Romanji is not that helpful. Not only will it slow you down, you will regret it in the long run. Eventually you're going to need Hiragana, Katakana and Kanji anyway, so why not start from the beginning? And another myth is that Hiragana and Katakana are difficult. They're really not. You could probably learn them within a month, studying every day. It's not that difficult. There's a million resources out there to learn it. If you just type into Google, learn Hiragana and Katakana, there'll be pages and pages and pages of resources, ways to do it, little games, little quizzes, stuff like that. It's really not difficult if you put the time and effort in every day. I highly recommend, first step, learn Hiragana and Katakana. Step 2, vocabulary. There's no point being able to write Hiragana and Katakana if you've got no use for them, so it's about that time we started learning some vocab. There's a few ways to go about this. The way I did it, I got little post-it notes and stuck them to everything in my room and wrote the Japanese in Hiragana or Katakana. So when I looked around my room I could see, oh, well, cool, yeah, toke, my clock on the wall, pasokon, my PC, my boshi, my hat. There's vocab everywhere. Try and use it. You'll start picking it up in no time. There's also some very good apps on the market to help you learn vocabulary with spaced repetition. Things like Memrise or my personal favourite Anki will help you. Every day you go through the vocab cards and if you get good at remembering it, it'll start showing it you less often. If you're not very good at remembering it, it'll show you more often until you get it. You're bound to encounter new words every single day, so make sure you add those to your list of vocab. Maybe it's in your vocab book or your Anki deck. Constantly add new words to your vocabulary, and to that end you also want to probably get some sort of dictionary app. Google Translate's okay, but I use something called Midori. It's quite expensive on iOS, but it's really worth it. It's a very good Japanese dictionary. You can search in English or Japanese. You can search using Kanji or Romanji or Hiragana or Katakana, and it's got some pretty good translations in there. I use it almost every day. And the other thing I would suggest is practice writing out the vocab that you're learning. Not only is it good to help you remember by actually physically writing the word out, it's also going to be good for your Hiragana and Katakana practice. It'll keep the Hiragana and Katakana fresh. You'll practice writing, your writing will get better, and it'll make the vocab easier to remember. Step 3. Now you've got some vocab under your belt. You're going to start to want to actually use this in a sentence, and that's going to require some grammar. So the next step is probably to go out and get some sort of grammar book. There are millions of grammar books out there. Some in Japanese, some in English, some are good, some are bad. The most popular ones seem to be things like Genki, Mina no Nihongo, and the one I had in England for a while was Japanese for Busy People. I'm currently using Genki right now in my Japanese classes. I'm really enjoying it. But if none of those books are for you, whatever book you decide to use is fine. Step 4. So, you've got a firm grasp on the writing systems. You've got quite a lot of vocabulary under your belt. You start to get a bit of grasp on the grammar. So the next step is to put all that stuff together and start to actually use the new language that you're learning. In Japanese, this might be quite difficult because it's not like there's a million Japanese speakers kicking about in England or America. There'll be some, but there'll not be that many. Luckily for you, the internet's a thing, and with the internet being a thing, the world got a lot smaller and it's a lot easier now. So here are my favourite resources for using your new language. Lang8. So lang8.com is kind of like a blog, but you write in the language that you are learning and you are corrected by native speakers of that language. It's a whole community of correction. It's a really nice interface, it's really easy to use. Lots of people get really involved and do lots of corrections, so it's a very good way to get feedback on the language as well as functional practice. Language exchange is a very important part of this, whether it's face-to-face or whether it's through some sort of chat app or Skype or something like that. So I use something called HelloTalk. It's an app you can install for free, and it will link you up with language learners of the same language. And you can use a text-based thing, it's got built-in translations. If they write something you don't understand, it'll translate it for you so you can understand. Lots of tips and tricks, and lots of people use it too, so there's plenty of people to speak to and practice your Japanese. Another good thing to practice is actual real-world language. So NHK Easy News is sort of the news in Japan, but aimed at people who can't speak the language very well. It's got lots of hints and tips and basic language, and it's also got audio and video for a lot of the things, so you can actually use your language in a functional setting and learn about what's going on in the world around you at the same time. And maybe at this point you want to start looking at lessons. I mean, there's face-to-face tuition, there's group classes. Every area will have something where you can go and learn Japanese. And if there really isn't, there's italki.com. Italki is a great way to learn a new language. It's one-to-one tuition online, really affordable, usually uses something like Skype, and I can't recommend it enough. I used it for a few months last year. I'm probably going to start using it again in the near future. You can choose your teacher based on the feedback of other people. You can take lessons. You can take them when you want them, as regularly as you want them. And it's pretty good. Really cheap as well. I would recommend it. So italki.com. And step 5, the dreaded kanji. So kanji are the Chinese characters that Japanese uses. There's thousands and thousands of them. To read a newspaper in Japan, you need 2,000 kanji, and they are difficult. They don't seem to have much to distinguish between one or the other, and it can be very frustrating trying to learn them. So here are my tips for learning kanji. Start as soon as possible, preferably in the vocab stage. The sooner you start, the easier it will be. I made the mistake of waiting too long to learn kanji, and now I'm finding it very difficult. So there's a thing called furigana. It's the Japanese kanji, plus the hiragana above it to tell you how to say what it is. This is really useful. You see it a lot in manga books, or you'll see it a lot in textbooks. It's a really good way to dip your toe in the water of kanji, if you like. If you're not ready to start kanji full, start with furigana and work your way up. There's a really famous book for learning kanji that a lot of people talk about in language learning circles called Remembering the Kanji, RTK. It's widely available online. You can get decks for your Anki app using the RTK. And basically what it does, it breaks down the kanji into radicals. And it will help you to build a story for each kanji. And the story makes it easier to remember. It's like a mnemonic device. And if you can sort of make a little story about the meaning based on what you can see in the kanji, it will make it a little easier to remember moving forward. And last but not least, as boring as it sounds, get a book and write out each kanji, maybe 10, 20, 50, 100 times, and keep doing it. Same with the vocab, it will help you to remember, and it's good practice. So, those are my top 5 tips for learning Japanese. Nihongo de ganbatte kudasai. So, that was my top 5 tips for learning Japanese. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, the subscription button is below. Please hit it, do me a favour, I'm trying to get to 200 subs, and I'd really appreciate it. If you want to see some cool videos that I made recently, the cool videos playlist is this way. If you want to see more videos about learning Japanese, this way. While you're here, check out the description box below. Got links to all my social media accounts. Drop me a follow, that'd be super awesome. And while you're down there, please put a thumbs up on the video if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't and thought it was lame. Either way, let me know what you think in the comments box below. And as always, until next time, Jamata! When learning a new language, one of the most important things is not to close your eyes when you're talking to the video. Today's lesson's all about learning Japanese. Lesson? What the fuck? I'm not teaching a lesson. And B, it's not very... B, what's B? That's my washing machine going off. Mina Nihongo. And learn about what's going on. Smartphone. My smartphone. I shouldn't have shown you that.